Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. And if it's your first time here, I'm Janetta, an author who loves to draw. On my channel, I focus on combining storytelling with art. If that's something you're interested in, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let's get to it. Chapter 21. Dante hated that his visit with Megan's parents only produced more questions. They received several calls from Megan's friends when she first went missing, and one of them suggested they get in touch with Dante's company. They gave Dante the friend's contact information. Lang ran the name against all their cases, current and past. She came up with nothing. And Dante came up with exactly the same thing when he searched for the infamous friend. Pulling his car into a driveway, Dante honked twice and waited. A few minutes later, Lang walked out with a large duffel bag. She threw the bag in the back and slid into the passenger side without a word. Dante pulled off, heading to see Ryan. "Do you really think Ryan can shed any light on this situation?" Dante questioned. Lang stopped staring in the side view mirror and looked at Dante. He and Megan were together for over a year. Is it really possible that Megan could completely stay away from her husband for that long? The question I keep asking myself is why this friend of Megan specifically told her parents to ask for us. Dante continuously glanced in the rearview mirror. He couldn't wait until they made it to the point where they could discreetly switch out the car. If the deranged doctor wasn't dead, I think it was him. Lang stared out the window. Dante tried to reassure Lang. While he did threaten to destroy us and everything we loved, he's not here to make good on that threat. I know this sounds crazy, but it's possible that before he got killed in prison, he paid someone to execute his plan. He was serving an extremely long sentence. Lang stated with unease in her voice. Hey, considering who we're talking about, it's not unreasonable to think that. When we get back from speaking with Ryan, we'll get one of our people to look into who the insane doctor was contacting in his last days. Maybe then we can cross off the possibility that he sent someone after us. I hate being so paranoid, but the fear in the pit of my stomach won't go away, Lang declared as they turned onto the road that led to a garage next to an office building. Maybe we should give this case to someone else, Dante questioned as he pulled his card off the visor and swiped into the garage. He pulled in and stayed there a moment by the door as it came back down. He drove through the aisle of cars in the blue section until he entered the red zone, then began looking for a space. I think that'll work. If this is really about us and not about finding Megan, then the mystery friend will have the parents demand to put us back on the case, Lang stated as he parked. Yeah, but the one hole in our theory is that if the contact information the parents gave is not working, how will he find out we are no longer on the case? Dante turned off the car, pulling out the key and handing it to Lang. They grabbed their bags, heading to the black truck in the green zone. We've got to move quickly, Dante stated. Whatever they're up to must be going down soon if they're breaking into Brooklyn's office. He lifted the hatch on the truck and threw the bags in. Lang got in and buckled up as Dante did his normal check of the vehicle. He started the truck, exiting the garage through a tunnel that led to an access road about a mile away from the facility. Once they made it to the access road, it was another 2-mile drive to get to a main road. Dante, I still believe the information we're looking for has unknowingly landed in Brooklyn's hands. Maybe we should focus our energy on finding out what exactly she has that they want back. Lang, I know. That's why I plan to spend some more time with her. It's clear that they didn't find what they were looking for since they tried to snatch her bag. Lang looked over at him surprised. You didn't tell me that. I just found out this morning. I called to check in on her when I was getting ready to head out and pick you up. Dante slowed as they made it to the end of the tunnel that led out to the access road. He swiped his car so the gate would lift. She said she hadn't thought about the incident until I asked her about the break-in at the office. He moved the truck forward and waited for the gate to close before driving away. Did they get anything when they snatched her bag? She pulled out the GPS from the glove compartment and typed in the address. I don't think so. I was debating whether I needed to actually have her followed. Brooklyn may not realize how dangerous a situation this is. Dante blocked the negative scenarios out of his mind. I thought you stated if she had another incident that you put someone on her immediately. When with her being on guard, it's going to be hard, Lang continued talking, as if Dante wasn't trying to speak. However, I suggest you stop treating her like the ex that you're trying to get back with and start treating her like an innocent caught in the crossfire. You'll never forgive yourself if something happens to her because you were trying to handle her with kid gloves. Trust me on this, Lang insisted. When we come back on the grid, I'll put a call in to have eyes on her full time. I have a female friend whose assignment ends Friday. She will keep an eye on her starting Friday when Brooklyn is scheduled to get off work until we get back on Saturday. Lang looked over as if to say, do you really want to wait? However, he had no choice. He tried the entire drive to arrange for someone to watch over Brooklyn. The one person he thought would be free to watch her immediately didn't return his call before he had to go dark. Dante looked at his phone and the cup holder, wishing he could turn it on and check on Brooklyn. To make that call now would put all of their lives at risk. He couldn't risk having a device active that could allow Megan to hack and track their location. The work week flew by for Brooklyn. Since the start of her work week had already been thrown off, this was a late Thursday night for her. She wanted to call Hunter, but his sleep schedule was different on the days he was at the club all night. Anyway, she already had plans to hang out with him Friday and Dante on Sunday once he got back in town. Luckily, she didn't see anyone following her at any point during the day, and that made her relax just a bit. She decided it was best to leave her computer at work since she was leaving so late. The death of Tuck, one of Bivik's media owners, complicated the acquisition she was working on. Now she had to wait for her company legal department to get back with her so she would know how to proceed. It made her wonder how Dante's case was wrapped up in Bivik. Brooklyn decided that with what had happened to Tuck, it was best she minded her own business. Coming home late usually meant that finding a parking spot would be an issue. When she made it home, it looked like she would have to park on the next block. But luckily, a car pulled out just ahead of her. All she could think of as she walked to her apartment was that she could not shower and change into her sleeping clothes fast enough. When she opened the door to her place, her mouth dropped. The apartment looked like total chaos. Brooklyn wanted to go in and assess the damage, but after the earlier incident, she thought better of it. She went downstairs, called the police, and waited for them near the entrance. The rest of the night was a blur. Brooklyn was not comfortable staying in her apartment until she figured out how to handle the situation. Her first instinct was to call Hunter, but he was at the club tonight. It felt wrong to interrupt his evening as if he was her man. She would stay at Alexis tonight and talk to Hunter tomorrow night over dinner. Considering what Dante did for a living, he might be best suited to help, but she knew he would be out of town until Sunday. Not being able to reach him when she needed him had always been a point of contention between the two of them. Police stood guard while she packed her duffel bag so she could spend the night with Alexis. The doorman at Alexis' building greeted Brooklyn. She signed in with security, then headed up to Alexis' condo. Alexis smiled as she let Brooklyn in. She poured them both a glass of wine while Brooklyn explained what happened. She handed Brooklyn a glass, taking a seat next to her on the couch. Well, let me lighten your mood by telling you what happened to me. Alexis shifted on the couch so she was facing Brooklyn. Oh, no, what did you do? Brooklyn asked, looking over her glass of wine before taking a sip. Well, I met this older gentleman who has an art studio. We got to talking about art, and I told him that I was considering making my hobby my career. Your artwork, Brooklyn spoke, slightly surprised but not shocked. Nothing strange about that. Alexis cut her eyes at her as if to say, just wait. You know strange things always happen to me. So I was a little apprehensive since he was kind of flirting. But LaShawn convinced me that this could be a great opportunity. Alexis finished her glass of wine and got up to pour herself another. Brooklyn chuckled. You apprehensive? Yes, it does happen, Alexis responded with an attitude. You're right, I'm being judgmental, Brooklyn apologized. What happened? Alexis returned with an entire bottle of wine. This supposedly well-to-do man took me to a little hole-in-the-wall restaurant. I will save that story for later. Then we went over to his art studio. Alexis poured a little more wine into Brooklyn's glass. Was he all over you? I've done some crazy things in my life, but he wasn't going to be one of them. So I played along with him and let him get his fill on while I thought about how to get out of the situation. Alexis looked as if she was trying not to picture the scene in her head. Brooklyn had never known Alexis to allow anyone to touch her that she didn't want touching her. Alexis poured more wine into her glass. Don't give me that same speech that LaShawn did about I would have knocked his behind out. If the cops were called, who would they believe? The older established man or the woman that is 40 years younger than him? What? You didn't want to come across as the gold digger going after the old man's money? Brooklyn laughed, finishing off her drink. Hell no. I'm not trying to land my behind in jail. I could see me knocking him out, then him bringing me up on assault charges. To boot, he was my ride home, she cried, staring over the wine glass at Brooklyn. So how in the hell did you get out of it? Brooklyn put her hand over the top of her glass so Alexis wouldn't pour any more wine. Well, I thought I had convinced him that a free field was as good as it got. But when he dropped his pants, I knew I was in trouble. So I sent an SOS call to LaShawn on the sly. Alexis smiled, shaking her head at herself. I had to dial LaShawn, then hang up so that she could call me back. Brooklyn laughed. Too funny, only you. Not that damn funny. I finally got him to take me home. Oh, he promised the next time we'll have to make time to thoroughly enjoy each other. Alexis rolled her eyes. You're lying. Brooklyn laughed harder, imagining the scenario. I'm giving you the edited version, but trust and believe that this incident goes on the wall of shame, right beside the pole incident. Alexis stood, grabbing the empty bottle of wine and heading into the kitchen. Oh, Lord, Brooklyn cried out, trying to contain her laughter. Oh, Lord is right. I'm all about getting mine, but I've got to be attracted to it. I damn near gagged when he kissed me. Alexis made a face. I'm really surprised that you didn't go all crazy on him. Brooklyn has seen that happen before. It wasn't a pretty sight. Look, I'm serious about the career change. I can survive this incident and still possibly not have trouble down the road if my path crosses his. I just hope there were no cameras present. Her eyes widened as she looked at Brooklyn. I never want to see it play back on that mess. Hey, I'm just glad things didn't get ugly. Alexis went into the linen closet and pulled out some towels. Yeah, his old butt was 6'6", thick and muscular. He looked like if he hit me once, I would shatter like broken glass. Just picturing him actually hitting me makes me shudder. Alexis hugged the towel, shaking her body to emphasize her point. Handing the towel to Brooklyn, she declared, I know I'm a mess, but me and Ed got a good thing, and I'm content with that right now, Alexis smiled. You don't say. Wow. Alexis is settling down. Brooklyn laughed, having a hard time picturing that happening. Whatever. Have you gotten some from Hunter yet? Alexis tilted her head as she waited for a response. Damn, where did that come from? We were talking about you. Brooklyn started messing with her bag. I was just wondering. Girl, if he's half as good as his cousin, you better get some of that. Alexis' sly grin revealed that she was using the subject of Hunter to get the conversation off of her, slowing down with one man. You are silly. Brooklyn pulled her sleeping clothes out of the bag. I'm serious. A huge smile crossed her face. Hunter told me you wore him down and he agreed to go out with you, but catching you with his cousin put a stop to the date. Brooklyn watched as Alexis avoided making eye contact for a moment. So thanks for not being able to keep your hands off his cousin. While I indulged in the appetizer instead of devouring the main course, the appetizer had me so delighted that I have not had a single regret about it. Alexis stated smugly. So I'm going to tell you again. I heard some of the rumors about Hunter's talents. If they are true, they put his cousin's skills to shame. I'll keep that in mind. Brooklyn didn't want to get into the Hunter-Dante conversation with Alexis. Alexis wasn't the friend that she had those type of discussions with. You do that, but since both of us have to work in the morning, I'll see you in a couple of hours. You know where everything is. Alexis headed to her room. Brooklyn looked at her phone, tempted to text Hunter, but decided just to tell him when he called to confirm their dinner date. She grabbed the towels, her sleeping clothes, her overnight bag, and headed to Alexis' guest room. Sleep was essential in functioning properly, and with all that was going on, that is exactly what she needed to do. Chapter 22. The club was finally quiet, and the last employee had left for the night. Hunter made sure everything was locked up before heading to the office. Since he knew he wouldn't be in tomorrow night, he double-checked to make sure everything was in order for the next night. The last thing he wanted was for his date with Brooklyn to be interrupted by business. He knew her ex had lost brownie points for allowing business to interrupt their dates. On the other hand, Hunter knew he was at a disadvantage because her ex had a foothold on her heart. However, he thought he and Brooklyn had something special that he was willing to fight for. He would never admit it to her, but she had him truly thinking things that he never thought before. Hunter laughed, imagining himself switching his work schedule to days to be able to spend more time with her and maybe ultimately settle down. The idea of coming home to her every night excited him. He never thought of marriage as an option, but because of Brooklyn, it was now in the forefront of his thoughts. His cell phone ringing stopped his daydreaming. He answered quickly when he saw who it was. "Hey, Vince, what did you find out?" "That Ryan has landed in major trouble. It's like finding a penny buried under 10 feet of rubble. It's an extremely complicated situation. Ryan is fine for now. Your new girlfriend's ex-crew is keeping him safe." Vince spoke clearly but swiftly. "What?" "Evidently not that safe if you were able to find out about it." Hunter did not like the fact that Brooklyn X was wrapped up in this. It's only because Ryan had his nose wide open and almost got himself killed over a girl. I'm continuously pulling back the layers to get to the root of what's really going on. Until I figure it out, keep an eye out on Brooklyn, Vince replied, sounding like he didn't think it was wise to go into all the details with Hunter. "Vince, you need to be honest with me and tell me what's going on." Hunter needed to know what type of situation he was getting into. Was it something that he could handle on his own, or did he need some help? "Bruh, I'm trying to find out. Right now, the only thing I know for sure is that Bevic Media and Trivision Media are not what they seem. I figured that out when they started following Brooklyn," Hunter huffed, frustrated that he hadn't dug deeper into the company in the beginning. "Yeah, but from what I hear, they were originally keeping an eye out on her ex's place. When she showed up there, someone recognized her," Vince explained. "Why were they watching her ex's place?" Hunter asked, sounding as if he was blaming himself. "Hunter, did you not hear me when I said this is a complicated situation? Look, the only reason I'm contacting you now is because Brooklyn's name keeps coming up." Vince knew how much Hunter cared for Brooklyn. "How worried should I be?" He held his breath as he waited for Vince to answer. "Very. From what I hear, Ryan's partner, Tuck, was attempting to blackmail someone. And as you know from Levi, that didn't turn out so well. 2 more of Tuck's associates are missing. Plus, Tuck's wife seems to be hiding, and the information that was to be used to do the blackmailing is rumored to be in Brooklyn's possession." Hunter could tell Vince didn't want to say too much more than that until he figured out what was really going on. "I don't think she has it. They broke into her office and also tried to snatch her bag, but—" "Listen," Vince interrupted. "They broke into her apartment tonight?" "What?" "She didn't call me." Hunter started shutting down his computer. "I sent someone over to check on her. She must be staying with a friend because her car isn't there." Vince tried to offer Hunter some comfort. "Well, that's good," Hunter replied, although he would have preferred for Brooklyn to come to him. "Hunter, go home, get some rest, and come up with every excuse to spend time with her until I get more information. Can you handle that?" Vince quieted, waiting a little before a reply came. Hunter finally answered, "I can handle that. Thanks, man. You might need to knock the rust off of those old school habits that you developed when we used to hang out all the time." Vince hinted at the seriousness of the situation. "Basically, you're saying that anything might jump off at any time." Hunter's life had finally gotten to the point where he rarely had to look over his shoulder, and he didn't have to always be on guard. It had a lot to do with the fact that he didn't constantly hang out with his old crew like he had in his younger years. Vince was the only one that he talked to on a regular basis. Everybody else just checked in once in a while. They got together occasionally for drinks or dinner, but nothing how they used to kick it. Man, whoever is orchestrating this is good. Vince paused, then reluctantly admitted, "It's been a long time since I had this much trouble getting to the bottom of something." "Yes, and that's what has me concerned," Hunter confessed as he tried not to run scenarios through his mind. "Stay alert, and I'll work on getting you answers." Vince hung up without an official goodbye. Hunter opened his safe, debating whether he needed to start carrying his gun again. He closed the safe without grabbing his Glock. When he headed to his car, he hoped he didn't come to regret leaving the gun. History had taught him that things could quickly go wrong when guns were involved. The last thing he needed to do was make the situation worse. Dante and Lane came through the back door of the little brick house. As they headed to the living room, they nodded their heads at the guys sitting in the kitchen. The two guys guarding Ryan left out of the living room when the pair entered. Ryan sat up and turned off the television. Lang stood near the bulletproof window. Dante sat in the chair near Ryan. The tension in the air was undeniable as he began asking Ryan some of the same questions they asked before, along with some new ones. Ryan reiterated what they had already knew. Dante started to think this trip was a waste of time. Shockingly, it was not. It provided them with something new to work with. Lang looked over at Dante as Ryan stated, "I still can't believe Tuck is dead. I should have listened to him when he told me that I needed to stay away from Megan, that she was trouble that I didn't need." Ryan kept rubbing his head and his neck like a nervous tick. "When did this happen?" Dante leaned forward in his seat. "The last time I saw Tuck, he told me that Megan wasn't what she seemed and that I needed to get away from her and lay low for a while. He offered to help me out." Ryan stood and started pacing back and forth. "Did he say why?" Lang asked as she glanced out the window. "No, he just stated that the story that she was feeding me wasn't exactly true." Ryan sat down. "What story was that?" Dante questioned. "She claims that she came across an extra shipment of specialty DVDs that wasn't on the docket. When she opened one and played it, it contained data and information on people and organizations. Megan thought Tuck was doing something illegal, and she panicked." Ryan reached for the drink he left on the coffee table. "Is that when you took off?" Dante inquired. "Yeah, which is why when Tuck caught up with me, I thought he was lying until..." "Until what?" Lane looked at him intensely as she typed notes into the tablet. "Until I tried to contact Megan, and they tracked me to the safe house. I just couldn't believe Megan was a master hacker and would track me. Tuck was right when he told me not to use electronic devices. Once they tracked me to the safe house, I knew." Ryan looked as if he was trying to recall his conversation with Megan. "What do you know about Megan prior to her coming to Bevic?" Dante asked as he scrolled through his tablet, checking off questions. "Like me, she had previous run-ins with the law. This job was her attempt to clean up her act. Her parents threatened if she got in trouble again, they were cutting her off. So her friend called Tuck and got her the job." Ryan shrugged his shoulders. "Nothing stood out as strange to me about that at the time. Now I wished I bothered to ask what type of trouble she had gotten herself into." Dante and Lane looked at each other. Pieces of the puzzle were starting to make sense. Megan went to work in Bevic Media's shipping department in hopes of finding something she was planning to use Ryan's skills to secure. They continued to question Ryan for about another hour, then left to see if they could track down the infamous Megan. When they arrived at another one of their rural Maryland safe houses, Lang pulled out her laptop. "Megan's our missing piece. The question is, what was she hacking when she left Bevic? Better question, who got her the job, and was Tuck using her special talent?" Dante paced the room as he contemplated the case. "I still can't figure out what they are looking for in Brooklyn's files. We looked through her apartment and her office after that weekend you bumped into her at Hunter's club. Neither of us saw anything that was unusual. Lang exhaled heavily as she set up her workstation at the table. Yeah, but maybe the files were in the office when we checked her home or vice versa. He knew Brooklyn was good for working from home, or maybe there was a new batch of files sent to her office. Okay, as far as we know, Trivision was above board, and Bevic Media is rumored to be shipping stuff other than movie DVDs. Lang tapped her fingers on the table and waited for her laptop to come to life. Yes, but the intel on what they were shipping out other than DVDs has been inconsistent, so we can't trust it. He stopped pacing and sat down next to Lang at the table. Maybe it is accurate. Maybe what Tuck shipped out depended on his client. Lang grabbed her notebook and pen. Think about what Megan told Ryan, that she found a DVD with data on people and organizations. You may be right, especially since taking on Bevic, in my opinion, would do little to improve Trivision's status. Dante looked over the breakdown of the two businesses. What does Bevic Media really have that Trivision is willing to pay millions of dollars to acquire? Lang flipped through her notebook, writing something down before returning to pecking on the keys of the laptop. Is the friend that referred Megan's parents to us the same person that got Megan into Bevic Media? Better question is, why did Tuck let her in? Dante was formulating a theory, but he wasn't ready to tell Lang yet. Okay, let's review what we've got. Master Hacker Megan is sent into the shipping department of Bevic to access something for Trivision. Lang paused, writing in her notebook. After 2 years, she clearly didn't find what she was looking for, so Trivision tries to buy out Bevic. Why did Tuck and Ryan agree? Look, I'm going to run back out to see Ryan and ask him about the business side of Bevic. Dante stood, grabbing his tablet and truck keys. Ryan clearly wasn't a part of the illegal side of the business, Lang interjected as she reviewed the information. You may be right. If we understand the dynamics of Bevic, maybe it will help us make sense of this. Dante wondered if this tied into the sudden influx of clients asking to work with him and Lang. The clients rarely hired them specifically. Over the last few years, there have been several requests for them. It was because Lang wasn't taking cases at the time that it didn't raise any red flags. Dante was wondering if Megan was using Bevic Media to search for Lang. If Megan figured out who Tuck's associate that was rumored to acquire all of Tuck's special clients' hard-to-find information, she possibly could have wanted to use him to track down Lang. Dante peered out the window into darkness. Tuck didn't know Ryan and Megan were an item. Why didn't Megan want Tuck to know she was dating Ryan? Lang stood, stretching a bit before heading into the kitchen. Yes, and did Megan specifically target Ryan? If so, why? It must have to do with the trouble that Ryan has been trying to stay out of. Pull up his info again. Let's see what Megan was trying to pull him back into. Dante grabbed his jacket. I'm on it. She grabbed a bottle of water out of the refrigerator, then headed back to her workstation. You know what? We'll talk to Ryan in the morning. I'll dig into Ryan's information. You dig into Megan's. Then we'll go from there. Dante set his jacket down. If it was Lang they were after, it wasn't smart to leave her alone to go ask Ryan questions. At least this way, he could pull the records of the cases over the years where clients specifically requested them and see if the dates that the request stopped correlated with when Megan started at Bevic Media. He also needed to see if the request restarted after Trivision threatened to take over. Lang's shoulders visibly dropped in relief as Dante announced that he was staying. As he sat back down at the table, she stated, Good thinking. We can ask him all the questions in one more visit. Did you bring the file on Tuck? Dante asked, noticing that Lang had started staring off into space. Yeah, she reached into her bag and handed him a flash drive. Dante got up, grabbing a few things out of the refrigerator before sitting back down. We also need to check to see what other Bevic personnel have gone missing. I'm on it. Lang's fingers started moving quickly over the keyboard. Whoever is missing is involved in the legal part of the business. Exactly, which means they could have the answers that we're searching for. Dante smiled as he started researching information. They worked well into the morning before shutting down their laptops and calling it a night. Dante felt a sense of relief. like they finally had a handle on this case. 7 years ago, Dante and Lang's lives went from both of them talking about settling down to both of them scrambling to survive. When Lang got shot, he and Brooklyn were discussing making their unique relationship official. He maintained their relationship for as long as he could. But when the deranged doctor threatened in court to get revenge, the image of Lang's husband popped into his head. He couldn't imagine having to find Brooklyn like that. Looking back, he should have taken the route Lang had taken and accepted a position that didn't require him to be in the field. Now he wished they hadn't talked Lang back into taking cases. Hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be and stay blessed.